All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education regular meeting of July 24th, 2024 to order. Um, Trustee Bhattacharya, Roger, would you care to lead us in the pledge? All right. A work session item 2.1 is our superintendent's update, so I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Fox-Salter.
Hi, everybody. Happy midsummer. We've been super busy here in the schools. It's a different energy, a different focus. I will say I have to give a huge shout out to our administrative staff. We had a fabulous 2-day retreat with all of our administrators. Professional learning is taking place right this week with Jessica Turner. Maria took a group to an AVRID conference, and again, lots of learning, multiple layers. Summer programs are up and running, and we will give the board an incredible update on all the activities of summer learning at our next board meeting. So lots of really great, important stuff. I also want to give a special shout out to to Nicole Reese and to Jared Mance. We had an excellent full day of training for our clerical staff. We went over SEL training. We talked about how to navigate difficult conversations. We had safety and security testing, and then people broke into groups about, asbestos training and some of the required ones from the state. And we went, Dr. Mara and his team went over HR issues, payroll protocols, et cetera. A really great day learning, and everyone really very much enjoyed it. Terrific information. During this past, since our last board meeting, I'm delighted to say that Alita McCoy and Melissa Banta and I went into New York City to give testimony, I should say, at the Foundation Aid hearing in Manhattan at the High School of Fashion. And a parent joined us, and we were the only district there with a team, the only ones with a team. So we coordinated our comments, and it was a number of my colleagues who were there were pretty impressed that Ossining showed up with a team. Dr. Sanchez was also there, and he was invited to the earlier session to give a lengthy overview and use data from Ossining, which we were happy to join him in, as was Dr. Corey Reynolds. He was also part of that initial group as well. So that was terrific. And I was excited to join Annie at the park meet and greet. We had lots of families there, and they had a lot of questions about going to school at Park, but also we got to talk about the excitement around the upcoming capital improvement bond. And many, many people had lots of questions, which I thought was just great. And then last night here at AMD, Catherine and I hosted a table, and we again had lots of great conversations about the capital improvement bond. Just a couple of quick reminders. Breakfast and lunch are free here in the district. Thank you, Alita. Until August 16th at select locations within our district. You can certainly see the banners outside. OBLAS also contain the locations and times. Back to school supplies, back to school nights are also being shared on our back to school one-pager, which a lot of people have thought was very, very useful. This one-page document that has all that just-in-time information about what to do over the summer and what you need to get ready for the opening of schools. People were thrilled to get that. And our summer street fest, we had to cancel. Oh, and thank goodness we did. The last one, because that took place last week. It would have been in the middle of that microburst, that terrible storm that hit Ossining. But our next one will take place on Monday, August 19th at Market Square. So that's my superintendent's update for this evening.
Thank you so much. Moving right ahead, item 2.2 is our equity item, and it is the facilities update and information related to the bond.
So this evening I want to introduce Dave Hunsberger, who is here from CPL. He will be our lead architect on the project. So Dave, if you want to come up to the microphone and introduce yourself to the Austining community. But I'm hearing that you know a lot of people here in Austining already. Okay.
Very proud to meet you all. Excited to be part of this project. Exciting. Real.
Thank you,
There we
Angela.
go.
Thank you. No, thank you for that. Thank you.
I think the project is very exciting. It's a real boon to the community, to the students and the families of Ossining. And I think you as stewards of public education should be very proud. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of you and working with you closely as we go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank
So Dave was able to join us last night at our facilities committee, and we had a lot of good information shared last night and updates and outreach. I got another invitation to another event, so which I thought was really good. And on Monday night, we held a facilities meeting with people, community leaders. We had our PTA folks, a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, representatives from the Village of Briarcliff, from the town of Ossining, from the Village of Ossining. We had a really great group attending that and got a couple of more invites. I got invited to Community Day at the Village of Briarcliff Manor, and they're waiving the booth fee for Ossining, which I thought was just great. And it was great just to get more information, and people are excited about the project. We have a whole, part of it was in that meeting, and I know, Frank, you were at last night's, but we outlined our communication protocol for all of that and the events that are taking place, asking for feedback and additional events that we could use just to get the message out. But on the board agenda tonight are two important resolutions which we need before we can start putting some of the other information out. So Dave, if you want to just talk to us about what's on the agenda this evening.
Sure. Well, tonight's, the big action tonight is the acceptance of the SECRA. The board is accepting themselves as a lead agency for the SECRA action. The SECRA document has been, and the study has been completed. The impact is listed, you'll see that as the resolution. So the two things tonight are the board accepting its position as lead agency and then accepting the findings as no impact with the study.
Right.
So those are the two things that are needed to go ahead before you do a bond. You have to accept those two things as a board and make that on the public record.
Right. And if the board may recall, at the end of June, once the SECRA process started, over 40 different notifications had to go out to all kinds of municipalities, agencies, anyone that had an interest, vested interest, that we were required to notify. And then we had to make sure that everyone responded back in a timely fashion. We had to review the data that was presented as such, obviously with the eye of our architects and engineers, before we could present to the board this evening the finding of a negative declaration, right? And then once that happens, the board then can adopt a resolution to hold a referendum in September. So two very significant actions for tonight's meeting.
Yes, they're important milestones to getting this bond going, and it sounds like Mary's doing all the outreach and getting the community, getting the word out. So you're on the right track and schedule's right on.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is audience recognition. I see no audience members here present. Illy, are there any online? All right, so we'll move ahead. The next chunk on our agenda is the consent agenda. I know we need to break out 4.9 to discuss. Are there any other items that any trustees would wish to break out?
I think we should do 4.1 and 4.2 separately.
Okay. All right. I'll take a motion for 4.1 and 4.2.
So moved.
Second.
4.1, resolution to adopt secret negative declaration for 2024 bond for capital work at Claremont Elementary School and M. Dorner Middle School and Ossining High School campus. 4.2, resolution to authorize the expenditure of monies for school purposes and the levy of a excuse me, of a tax therefore. All in favor?
Any discussion?
Oh, any discussion, thank you. Keeping me on my toes.
Okay. I do just have a question for the SECRA determination. Is that available for review by anyone from the public?
Yes.
And where would they go to find that?
Well, we can certainly add it to our website, which I think would be important, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would
We've
be
asked,
great.
people have asked,
Yeah,
even the
people have been
previous one.
asking at the info booths.
Right, people are fascinated. The question came up with, do we look at environmental impact? And I was like, yes, that's such an important statement that the state of New York actually has a law around it, and it's called SECRA. So it was a great question to be asked, but we'll make sure these are available for the public to see.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Woohoo, we're off to the races.
I think we deserve
Yay.
it.
All right, I'm going to take a motion right now for 4.2 through 4.8.
We already did 4.
Oh, sorry, 4.3 through 4.8.
So moved.
Second.
4.3, resolution to approve an agreement with the Assistant Superintendent for Business. 4.4, resolution to approve an agreement with the Director of School Facilities. 4.5, resolution to appoint the additional consultants for the 2024-2025 school year. 4.6, resolution to approve the minutes of the special meeting/executive session of June 5th, 2024. Resolution to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of June 12th, 2024. 4.8, resolution to approve the minutes of the special meeting/executive session of June 18th, 2024. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so I just want to discuss 4.9 before I even read it. I think you were all, I was CCing everybody on all the emails. So at our last meeting, we had approved the proposal of some resolutions for NYSBA for their annual meeting. I got a response back from NYSBA that basically said, this sounds really similar to something we already passed. It's in effect for 5 years when NYSBA passes resolutions. This is so similar that, and it passed by a slim margin, that if we want to move forward, we basically put ourselves at risk for it going up to vote again and failing, and then we kind of get nothing. So it's a big gamble. I didn't have the authority to do anything at the time, but go ahead with what we agreed upon. I asked, I said I got to submit it because our board approved, that's what our board decided, but can we decide to rescind our proposition? And he said, yes, and to try to do that before their August meeting. So that's what this is. So when we approve this, we would be approving to rescind the proposal that we had submitted already. So we're trying to undo. Unfortunately, we're too late in the process. We can't edit it, right? Like if we had been more on top of this, they would have, if we had submitted earlier, I should say, he would have said, are you sure you want to do this? And I would have said, why don't we hold off and I'll discuss it with my board, and then we can come back and maybe edit it and resubmit something else. We submitted only a few days before the deadline, so that wasn't really an option for us this year. So I open it up for discussion if anybody has any feelings that they want to share before we vote.
I would just say it's a point of procedure. Let's put the motion on the floor and we can discuss it. at
Yeah.
that time.
Sure. I'll take a motion for 4.9.
So moved.
Okay. 4.9, resolution to rescind, resolution to rescind Resolution 6.6 on the July 10th, 2024 board meeting agenda, proposed resolution, housing and local control. Any discussion?
I'm just trying to pull up information on what it was that was previously passed.
It was related to pilot.
No, I think it's, so NYSBA already has one on the books that says NYSBA opposes any legislation or budget initiatives that would allow New York State to overrule local zoning ordinances. And just as a reminder, ours says, resolved that the New York State School Boards Association opposes any state legislation that would allow religious institutions to build housing that bypasses local zoning laws and without having to undergo a SECRA review process. So those are the two, right? So I guess my thought on this is there was already the NYSBA resolution that had been adopted, yet we still saw action in government to propose legislation that would bypass it, and it was based on religious institutions. So I think that was the reasoning behind why this particular one was crafted and proposed to the board here in Ossining for review, sort of a direct response and message, hey, we don't want that kind of a thing. So, you know, I'm curious as to others' thoughts.
Can I just ask for some clarification, because I want to make sure I understand this? So, by rescinding this, we are, just from my understanding, we are waiting to kind of align with NYSBA on what they're proposing?
What they have is already approved. It's
Okay.
been voted on.
So-
But when if what will happen is they'll have their meeting in August where they really go through these with a fine tooth comb. And if we go forward with it, this may eclipse the one that they already have on the books, such that if we put it up for a vote and it fails, that's in contradiction with what they have already approved, right?
See, I feel like this is distinguishable. This is very clearly religious institutions.
That's what it
They're
feels like to
just-
me.
Theirs says by allowing the state to bypass local control for whatever reason. Ours is much more focused,
That's
so.
specific.
And is there a real danger that it would fail? I just assumed that this kind of housing would be negative impact towards most school districts.
He had included in his response to me the pass-fail rate of the proposition that he felt was similar. I don't recall off the top of my head what it was, but it was forwarded to you.
This
I mean, I
is,
can give a little color on
Yeah.
why. I mean, I was on the resolutions committee for several years and sat in that August meeting and went through it. You run into at times a belief that school districts shouldn't be involved in zoning at the end of the day. And so you run the risk of putting this up that it waters down what they have on the books. If NYSBA is asking us to put it off because they're concerned about it and the timing of this is so tight, I would follow through on that recommendation and not, because right now, as it stands, it's any organization, not just religious organizations. So they have a broad language to lobby against at the end of the day. And I think their concern is if this goes up, it sounds like, and then you open up this window, it gives them the ability to chip away at it at the end of the day if they can't get it. And the last one that didn't pass. While we may think it would be a slam dunk issue in certain regards, I can tell you New York State is a big tent and there's a lot of different viewpoints on things. So my advice would be to heed NYSBA's concern at the moment. We could always put it up again, you know, at a later time. It wouldn't make this year's resolutions committee, but I would feel more comfortable doing that just based off of what Ms. Mangiavelli is basically sharing with us tonight.
So then, just to Catherine's point that they already bypassed it with this Ossining stuff, I guess I'm wondering, like, would we be able to, or would, I don't really know how this works, but would that project in Ossining be stopped because of this resolution that NYSBA already has? Or could it be, I guess?
So there's no project in Ossining. It's just that I was trying to say that our state leaders,
Yes, I'm sorry, I
Right.
mixed that up, yes. There's no
Okay.
project in Ossining, but there, yes.
our
I'm with
state
you.
leaders have proposed something very specific.
Yes.
For the whole state, not unique to Ossining. And so we in Ossining recognized on our school board and in our committee the dangers of that and how it could be dangerous for us in particular here in Ossining, which was why we proposed this, sort of as a response to
Okay.
that.
I'm remembering now that it was just like coming out of legislature. So if there was something to come out of that, if that did move forward with what senators are trying to do, how would that, I guess, mesh with what is on NYSBA's books now?
I
I
mean,
think there's a time to it too, right? The end of sessions happened in Albany. And so they would have to come back to pass anything, they'd have to come back in a special session to do this. So the likelihood of this basically being put on the floor is probably very unlikely till next year. It could be something that goes in with the budget. It could be something that comes up at the end of session next year. But, you know, the likelihood of it happening right now is probably slim. That's just something to keep in mind with it. The window of what they were trying to get to was the big ugly bills, the omnibus bills that get put in at the end of session. And I think the noise was very effective. I think it was very effective to put the resolution up to NYSBA to say, we're watching this, we're seeing this. I think they would be very likely to support, and they have very broad language to advocate for. I think they have that in their wheelhouse right now. Sounds like they're a little concerned that this could hurt them to do that. So I think it was very effective what we did. You know, as I said, I think the timing of the end of sessions passed, we're probably not in risk it the same way, but like most things, you got to keep banging the drum for a long period of time. And I think I would give us credit for raising awareness and saying we're watching, because there's a lot to that at the end of the day. But I think if they're asking us to consider pulling it out because they're concerned it could hurt them in the big picture of things, I guess I would be amenable to that.
So Frank, since you've been on this, a question for you and anybody else that's here. I guess, let's just say in the instance that this goes on the floor next year, it passes, or it doesn't pass. No, take that back. It passes, right? Whatever is being proposed by our local legislatures. Is there, and let's just say we go and say we're going to go propose this resolution, and NYSBA says we're going to propose this resolution. Is there still that ability for them to override what we're doing?
Well, I mean, the state doesn't have to take our consideration, or basically the legislators don't have to take NYSBA as a lobbyist register. They don't have to take any of that at the end of the day.
Right.
What typically happens is there's a lot of provisions that are put into that big omnibus bill at the end of session or at the budget time where you're voting for the budget, but you're voting for 500 other things in that same budget. And a lot of legislators don't even know what's in the 500 when they're voting at the end of the day. Many do, many don't. And so the concern, really what you want is you want your lobbyists with their eyes looking out for that kind of stuff and basically raising awareness. I think the value in this is really, NYSBA knows Ossining, they knows we're looking at this issue. It would be good to check in with them to basically say in the fall, what are you hearing on what's on the ground on this, and trying to keep at this. But the legislators can move forward. I mean, in theory, they could call a session tomorrow and tell everybody to come into Albany and vote on this thing. Now, they would have to deal with the public scrutiny or not on it in the backlash of it. But I think the likelihood of them doing something like that would be pretty extraordinary at the end of the day. I think, you know, as NYSBA's sort of representing school districts across the board, they know what this issue is for all school districts at the end of the day. And, you know, they've taken this issue to the Supreme Court and won on basically, you know, with cases. So I think that I just would really, you know, if they're asking us to not kind of weaken their position at the end of the day, now, I could be wrong. We could be sitting here in the fall and they could come back. But us passing a resolution on our own isn't going to change that from happening at the end of the day. I think
It doesn't change it the other way either, right?
well, nothing's preventing us
Well, it could.
at Ossining from going up there if something is proposed.
Right,
and
that's what
saying,
I'm
hey,
thinking,
we
right.
really don't want this, and we
Right.
want to advocate for not having this, and here's why.
And we could get on the phone with NYSBA and say, we talked to you in the summertime, and we said,
so
and
this-
your language right now includes this, and you should be out here fighting that.
Yeah.
And they would have a hard time saying no to us because, you know, and I think
And those would
That's
be
the
very
strength of
effective
this.
strategies. Those would be very effective strategies, particularly since the one-to-one conversations I had say, well, that really, no, I wasn't in favor of that. I'm like, okay, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll
Right.
keep an eye on that. We'll hold you accountable for it.
And then
Right.
in that email, it does say this was defeated in 2022 and then passed by a relatively slim margin in 2023. So
Yeah.
I'm good with.
When we were writing this, I was the person who went through the NYSBA adopted resolutions and said, is this covered? Because in the worksheet, it asks, is it covered? You got to check it to see. And I didn't think it was. I thought that the religious thing was more specific because this was a specific concern. But after that email exchange where we were basically told, like, are you sure you want to do that? Now I'm not sure I want to do that. I don't want to Frank's point, risk what we already have. And now that we have this kind of history, this back and forth of, well, we didn't submit, if something does happen, then it's like, well, we didn't submit this because we were told that this concern fits under an umbrella of a proposition that is already adopted. So, or position that's already adopted. So for that reason, I'd like to kind of kick it down the road. We can take a look more patiently and see, and kind of take the temperature of the room this fall when that meeting takes place. Because I think it's a big gamble to put it forward
I
when
feel-
it passed by a slim, when something so similar, I should say, passed by a slim margin.
I feel uncomfortable voting on it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we're
I mean,
voting
there's
to,
ano-
we
there's
would be
another
voting to
col-
rescind it.
We're voting to rescind, so to be clear, like a vote of aye would mean that we scrap this, and a vote of nay would mean we leave it submitted as is. It is already submitted because we had
Right,
voted
so
to
that's what I'm
submit it.
saying, leave it, if we were to, so I'm trying to figure out what the harm is in voting nay, in voting aye for this later, or considering whether it's an aye or a nay later versus at this point now.
So
And
the
we
harm
already
is we would
voted
be
yes for
rocking
it.
the boat. That's
Right.
what NISBA is saying.
They're
Don't
saying-
rock the boat on this. We
Okay.
can already advocate for this.
Right.
As
Okay.
well as not just religious groups bypassing local control, but nonprofit groups
Yeah.
bypassing local
Right.
control, like any group bypassing local control.
Right.
They're saying
And
we can already advocate for that.
We need to decide tonight about what we're going to do about this because it's already submitted, so we're past the deadline.
Okay.
And they themselves have a committee that meets in August to review all these things. So
Okay,
I
it's that
was
August
asked,
meeting. Got
can you
it,
please,
got it.
if you are to rescind this, it would be much easier for us if you try to rescind this before that meeting.
Well, we want to come.
And I said,
collaboration
great,
with
we
them.
have a meeting already on the books in July.
Okay, I'm clear.
And in the likelihood that that meeting, what will happen is NISBA will advise the committee on this, and they'll likely say, we don't recommend this, and the committee will likely vote it down, and then it will go into the bucket of all
Of
the
all the
things they're
things
not
that are-
recommending, which will be at the very bottom of the list.
Right.
Which will then sort of have the ability to sort of diminish the message
Yeah.
at the end of the day. So I just, the sound, all the signaling around this to me is just like, we should,
Could have a
No.
much stronger message through West Putt.
and if they were to come back and we keep tabs with them and they say there's something in the works and then we need to really do get on this issue at the end of the day. But I think it would be rather extraordinary for that to happen before the budget or to happen before next year's end of session, but never say never.
All right. You haven't spoken on this, you have anything to add? All right. Are we ready to vote then? Does anybody else have anything? So just to reiterate, so that we're clear, the resolution is to rescind our previous resolution. So just to state again, a vote of aye means that we would rescind, scrap, walk away. A vote of nay would mean we would leave it submitted as is. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Whew, all right. Moving ahead to 5.1. I'll take a motion for 5.1.
So moved.
5.1, motion to accept recommended placements of special education students. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Does anybody have anything from 6 that they wish to break out? All right. I'll take a motion for 6.1 through 6.6.
So moved.
Second.
6.1, resolution regarding health services, other districts. 6.2, resolution regarding 2024-2025 custodial reimbursement rate for building use. 6.6, resolution regarding hiring custodial and grounds summer help. 6.4, resolution regarding adoption of the 2024-2025 school lunch fund budget. 6.5, resolution regarding appointment of consultant Robert Half, Inc., District Business Office staff. 6.6, resolution regarding interfund transfers. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Does anybody have any items they wish to break out from 7.1 to 7.17? All right, I'll take a motion for 7.1 through 7.17.
Second.
7.1, resolution regarding rescinding support staff appointments. 7.2, resolution regarding rescinding professional staff appointments. 7.3, resolution regarding rescinding bus attendant appointments. 7.4, resolution regarding professional staff resignations. 7.5, resolution regarding support staff resignations. 7.6, resolution regarding administrative staff appointments. 7.7, resolution regarding professional staff appointments. 7.8, resolution regarding bus attendant appointments. 7.9, resolution regarding professional staff appointments before after-school programs. 7.10, resolution regarding professional staff appointments, summer school programs. 7.11, resolution regarding civil service staff appointments before after-school programs. 7.12, resolution regarding civil service staff appointments, summer school programs. 7.13, resolution regarding support staff appointments before after-school programs. 7.14, resolution regarding support staff appointments, summer school programs. 7.15, resolution regarding approval of school volunteers. 7.16, resolution regarding civil service staff requests for leave of absence. 7.17, resolution regarding support staff request for leave of absence. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, this brings us to 8.1, our next audience recognition. Still seeing none in person. Ilya, is anybody online? All right. Next up is board reports and dialogue. Does anybody have anything they wish to share?
Yes, actually. I emailed everyone about this. It's technically called the PTA committee. We met because we wanted to discuss a action plan for some sort of directed outreach to parent groups to just provide information to them about the bond. And a letter was drafted and then revised and has gone through legal, and we are seeking permission from the rest of the board to send that out to a list of PTA groups and some other parent groups, just to invite them to have conversations with the board and start learning about the process to the extent that they have not already.
I think I recall just in the committee when we discussed it, it was inclusive too of like community groups, not just parent groups, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're technically PTA parent groups. I know there are other community groups that are, there's a different committee for the Chamber of Commerce. So any issue from the rest of the board, if the PTA committee kind of takes the lead and sends it out to the other community groups too.
I think it's a good one.
No, that's fine with me.
Don't want to step on anyone else's toes.
That's a good point. We're just on a tight timeline, and so I would just say if we can get it out, that would be great.
Yeah.
And it's just a kind of a door opener letter.
It's a door opener, yeah. It's
Okay.
a, hey, this is happening.
It's
You may already know about it. If so, great. If you want to know more, we'll make ourselves available. Here's also how you can self-educate.
And just to not kind of step on anything that the administration's doing, this letter would go out in collaboration with Mary in terms of just, if we've already hit groups already and they've already communicated out, I don't know that we need to send something to the same groups, but, you know, I guess that's the question is has the district looked at it too?
Yeah, we went through
Okay.
every word, actually, it's an excellent letter after, and Stephanie looked at it, so, yeah,
Okay.
we'll borrow some of that language for the district newsletter too, so.
Okay, perfect.
Collaboration, right.
Perfect. Thank you.
My thought process when, and I'm a member of the early, of OEC, and they invited me to come speak to them about the
Right.
bond a couple weeks ago, just to provide some information. Their feedback to me was that they're happy to hear from administration. Sometimes it's intimidating for them. So they appreciated the opportunity if some of their members wanted to basically talk to their neighbor, right, more casually. They really enjoyed that. So that was sort of the impetus for this.
So we're looking for just a a green light?
Yeah, just a green light.
for
Green
me.
light?
Green light.
Green light for me.
Okay, sounds good. I guess I'll update that I went to the Summer Law Conference in Albany, and also NYSBA had basically a mini conference they called Leadership in Education. I didn't yet, but I will email out the webpage that had all the slides for all of the presentations for both events. There was a lot of really interesting stuff. I went to everything related to AI. I want to talk about that some other time. That was really exciting. I go to everything that's, anytime I get a chance to go to an AI-related professional development, I do. And new laws and information we can talk about as those things come up. I'll email you. The other thing I wanted to make sure I bring up is that I got an email earlier today, I forwarded to everybody, about an opportunity to meet with Mike Lawler, who is our congressman. So it was sent to me and addressed, hello advocacy liaisons and board presidents, which it was addressed to us because we don't have a specific advocacy liaison. While I was at this conference, NYSBA had a booth they had their like advocacy booth set up, and I took a couple pamphlets. Because we don't have an advocacy liaison, and I said, oh, we have a committee, we're trying to kind of grease the wheels because they're a little rusty, we're trying to do more advocacy this year, but we don't have a specific liaison. So maybe I'll give this to somebody who's on our legislative advocacy committee and they can be our liaison. And the guy there was like, yeah, it's usually a president or vice president who's a liaison. I don't know if we want to have a liaison. I don't know if you want me to go to this, if we want somebody, I'm not on the legislative advocacy committee this year, if we want somebody else to do that. We don't need to decide all of that right now. It's just an idea that I'm floating. I think what I gather is that you just land the liaison is the person who lands themselves on the email list of the email that I just received. I really think that that's mostly it. You receive those extra communications and then you communicate that back out to your board. You're like the point person for their legislative communications. So
I think how it's been done in the past is we've received these emails, whether it's been the board president or Dr. Sanchez or whoever, maybe even Alita, you've received some of in the past, and then it kind of goes out to the rest of the board. Hey, there's this opportunity coming up, and I think we've kind of floated it to the broader board and said, you know, who has a strong desire to do this? I could be misremembering this, honest. I know I've done a couple of these. I don't know if it was in my capacity as board leadership or if it was just, this is, you know, I know, for example, I did some with Senator Harkam because I lived in his area as a constituent, so it made sense. I think sometimes that's how it's kind of been dealt with.
And the email is clear. If you can't go, send somebody else. Like any of us could be the person that goes. So does anybody want to go?
Can you just explain, so Lawler will be there and every board in his district is invited and then therefore one person goes, like, or is it just us one-on-one?
No, I got the impression that it's for the area, and I don't know if it's from NYSBA, so it's probably not just everybody in Westchester or Putnam who happens to fall into that. It's probably his entire constituency, which includes much of Rockland.
Right, and then so NYSBA has someone from their GovRel team that's on the call? But do board members get to, like, do we get to say anything, or do we just listen, or?
You
ask
do.
questions?
Usually
Yes.
there's an opportunity and you kind of work with the superintendent to make sure that you have your talking points. You know, I would imagine it would be things like the Rockefeller study, the talking points that we've discussed as a board around that, what's very important to us about that. It would be for us, like, ensuring, I know you guys are starting to look at some things last year that were tabled about bypassing local control, whether that's religious institution or otherwise, and I want you to know that we're not going to support something like that. Things like that. Everything from, unfunded mandates by the states, like what we're seeing in terms of trying to meet E&L needs. Things like that is what you just make sure of, like, hey, I just want you to know what we're seeing and what's important to us.
And in the past, I
So-
know, like, Westpot has sent out, like, here's what our talking points are. Like, kind of a menu. If you need a starting point, you can choose from these things and speak to your district's experience on these topics.
So what I think might be helpful in this, because like there's a lot going on here, and you've got U.S. Congress, you've got state issues, and so NYSBA puts out things like if you were to go to meet with a U.S. representative, the kinds of things you advocate for, and that's the broad tent stuff. And then there'll be Ossining things. So it might be helpful for the legislative committee to come up with our bullet list of federal issues, of state issues, look at what's on NYSBA's books, because they'll have a similar thing for both. There's also the National School Boards Association. You know, you're going to go and they're going to present, and then they're going to give the boards a round to go, and you're going to have a very short period of time. And so what you really want to hit in that issue is whatever you have on your list. It's probably also on NYSBA's list, may not be on NYSBA's list at the end of the day, but in that meeting, that would be, you know, that's kind of it. Like, you're going to probably get more time with your state legislators than you're going to get with a federal legislator at the end of the day.
My area of concern with Congressman Lawyer, he's very pro-private school vouchers. Large constituent in Rockland County who will advocate for that, and he is supportive of it. That would be the one issue that needed, in my opinion, I have been very strong with him about that.
When is the meeting with Lawler? When is that one?
July 30th.
Oh, that's soon.
July
31st, rather.
At 11
Thank you.
a.m.
Yes, I have the email pulled up and I misread it. It's July 31st, it's next week. So I don't know if we'll have time for the legislative committee to come up with a list of talking points, or if we would just want to have Mary write something up, that's fine with me. If that's fine with you.
That's fine. I think the Superintendent's Association has their lists, and that would be great, and then we'd be mirroring that. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, but could it get circulated to the board prior to going to this meeting?
Sure.
It should, it should.
Yeah.
The board, you know, should have it, like, you know, and that's in a worst-case scenario, if somebody really had an issue, you would have to call, like, you know, an emergency meeting and have it, or there would have to be some consensus around something. But
maybe
it's, yeah, the whole board should know.
Maybe Mary,
Be my pleasure.
all right, and we can maybe hear about it in an update?
Yep.
And then,
Just emailing them,
Or
emailing the
around.
legislative group as well, when we want to meet next.
who will we like to attend? I'm unavailable.
Yeah, I would not be available for
I'm
that.
unavailable as well.
I am available and I am willing to attend, but if somebody is more passionately would like to attend, it is fine with me. They do. It's sounding like it's going to be me. Okay, I will go. And I will say whatever Mary wants me to say. All right. Does anybody else have anything that they need to discuss during board dialogue? Okay. So, I'd like to take a motion to enter into executive session to discuss matters and information related to an investigation.
Second.
Well, you gotta ask if all those in favor.
What's
Did we
that?
take a oh, you took the motion.
Took the
sorry.
motion.
Yeah, yeah,
Discussion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
yeah. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?